Hello.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm good, mate.
Good morning, Mr. Hudson, and welcome all to part 6 of Alan Hudson's World Cup Diary. Alan, we're going to call this "We Keep Failing Because We Fail Our Most Creative Players." So let's first start at it's the morning after the night before. Another, I don't like calling it glorious failures, but another failure, in my opinion. The games are won in midfield. England fail to put our creative midfield players on the pitch like we've always done, and once again we come up short.
Well, the strangest thing is, although for the first half an hour, I saw France as such a superior team.
Yeah.
Especially Griezmann in particular. Griezmann was the key to everything that France done. We didn't have anyone on the field who, in that class, we've always spoke about them class midfield players. Your Modric, who is still in it at 37, who can play the game the way we love playing it. And at half time, although it was still in balance. I was at the end of the game, Paul. I was really disappointed of the way it ended because with Kane missing a penalty, he's probably. I looked at the game as well. That if France had Harry Kane up front, they might have won by 5 or 6.
Yeah.
They were so lacking that cutting edge. Although Giroud got the goal, whether it went in had it not hit the centre half on the shoulder, I don't know. We don't know, but it looked a great goal from the initially, but another fantastic cross in. Yeah, exactly what you're saying. If we go back again to having your best players on the bench.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had some people call me last night who were out enjoying themselves, and I had a couple of nights with them going to Sutton Football Club, and they keep in touch, and they love their football, and they were asking me what I thought and all that, and they called me before the game at half time, and I said, well, England, they're playing a superior team. And I said, at half time, he hadn't even started yet. I said, he's flexing his muscles, Mbappe, I mean, England should have took so much hope out of the way he performed last night, because he weren't at the races last night. So, their best player, the world's best player that they kept on. They kept saying the world's best player. That was it to try and make some kind of excuse for defeat or something. It drives me mad watching the game with Rio Ferdinand and people like that on there, and Ian Wright and Lee Dixon commentating on everything was, going against England. And this is football, mate. This is, we've had referees like that, and we've lived on 1966 for all these years, but not one of those persons ever mentioned the linesman. It's
Absolutely.
unbelievable.
We mention it when it suits us. We forget it again when it suits us. Excuse me. Time of the year, it's awful. I don't like World Cups in the cold. I don't like the cold. I didn't like the referee, and I think that when you look at the tournament as a whole, I think the standard of the referee has been poor. Portugal were bemoaning their referee that they had when they got knocked out against Morocco. I've seen some really awful decisions. The Argentina versus Holland game, I think there was 16 or 17 yellow cards. The referee had lost it. So it wasn't just confined to England and he just gave bad decisions against England. Because what usually happens, Al, as we know, what the English do, what the panels and the pundits do, is focus on one side of the game. It was equally as bad for the French. It was just a bad referee.
It was awful referee.
Yeah.
as you say, it was. You think they get 4 years to sort this out and to get the best referees. Whether they obviously, they got to give them to different countries or whatever. But I can't see that. I was wondering. I was thinking for the game when they showed the people at the VAR, and I thought, these people, they've got to be careful what countries they, that handle certain matches. Um, going back to '66. It was the Russian linesman. It could have been a case of in them days. Does he like the English more than he likes the Germans?
Yeah,
It was. It was that wasn't that long after the war, really, considering. You just don't know what. He just didn't have a clue. The linesman didn't have a clue in '66. He didn't. It was almost as if he told his saying the referee did the opposite. I don't know. It was that farcical. And it has become this. If you think all these years on, and we're in a worse shape than what we were when I played.
yeah, we
You know,
are.
my goal against Ipswich at the side netting that come out at Stamford Bridge that the referee gave, and I walked away laughing. And David Webb said to me, "You're telling me it weren't in." I said, "No, no, it's not my job. It's his job." I says, "That's £30 a point, mate. It's pay for my dinner in the restaurant tonight. Don't worry about that." And when you think, that was in 1971. I mean, God Almighty, all these years later, and imagine that happened last night.
Yeah,
Uh, in a World Cup quarter final. I mean, it's still the same thing. Referees are referees, and the standard is no better today. When referees have to go to a monitor to have a look, and the people on the line can't tell, and they got to go to a monitor. We're in a sorry state, aren't we? Let's be fair.
absolutely. And again, let's go back to '66 because that's probably, I think, the first tournament, the first World Cup that the team was picked by a manager. It was always picked by the
Yeah,
committee, wasn't it, before?
yeah, yeah.
And Ramsey left out our most gifted and talented players for workmanlike players. Ramsey gets the sack and then passes the baton on. Joe Mercer had it briefly, 74. Don Revie, I think, took over probably early 75. Revie, again, didn't play all the Maverick players, didn't like them, didn't fit into his game plan. Revie goes, we have Ron Greenwood. He phones you up in a pub on a Sunday night, see if you can play against Brazil. And you look at it and you just think, it's the same cycle repeating itself of incompetent referees. I remember when we done a podcast before, Bernie Winter says, you won't win World Cups by playing carpet bowls and bingo. And Gareth Southgate, okay, they haven't played carpet bowls and bingo, but they've been messing about with a unicorn in the pool, and I don't mean a live one because that's wrong, but they've been doing all these games, focusing on all these periphery stuff, and the bottom line is we haven't played our most creative and flair players, and if you don't do that, you're going to come up short. But again, the happy clappers will say, tick the box, job done, through to the next round. Well, now, guys, you can't tick a box. You're not through to the next round. Look at the mathematics. Look at the sum. Don't just look at we win. Look at how we go about winning. And we keep repeating the same problems. Stupidity.
Well, it's the problem. One of the problems we have is, we went into the game as top scorers because of the Iran's pathetic attempts in the first match, and then we beat a poor Wales team. My son Anthony must be kicking himself, or his coach must be kicking himself, as how they let themselves down, because they put a far better performance in against England than what France did in my eyes.
Yes.
I really wasn't impressed with France. As I say, apart from Griezmann, I thought the first 10 minutes Dembele was going to run riot,
Yeah.
and I thought French were wrong to change that, because there was no doubt he was going to get more. he was going to get more joy out of the left back than Mbele was out of the right back, because that was billed as the old playing Frazier that last night. The
Yeah,
two proper heavyweights, and I don't mean heavyweights as fantastic players. I mean that, the two sprinters, the two that, that probably weighed more than anyone on the field for their height. Uh, that was the heavyweight battle, but I never see it as that. I never see that. I don't think that took a little bit away from the game. And I thought when Mbappe wasn't doing it, that gave England a little bit of an oomph,
yeah,
but no, I still I thought I couldn't see we had no pattern of play once again. We play one way. I'm still trying. I was confused after the game. I thought you know what I'm like. I made it very clear. People were texting me and phoning me and saying, I said you wouldn't want to know what I want as the outcome, because of my thing with the FA and my case with the FA, and I just, it's an ongoing thing with me with England, and I don't feel any difference. And Southgate has put kind of fuel on that fire for me. In 1996, I was a little disappointed because I liked Venables and I liked the way he used to play. And I was sitting here thinking last night, the camera went up on Beckham, and I was thinking, watching the England team last night, and all the, all the great things they were saying about him. When we played Argentina and got beat, when Beckham got sent off, I mean that side was a far better side than this side.
yeah,
If you look at it man for man, and you got, we ain't got players like Sheringham anymore. Just all round, I couldn't see where we were going last night. Even when France were clinging on, really. I don't think France were at the game last night. I think they were just felt so relieved to get through it.
yeah.
I don't think it helped watching Morocco, actually, because Morocco were up to my team. I said before the tournament they were the dark horses, and
Mm,
I really can't see anyone beating them now. I've had a look at the betting before the game, and I said to my son, I was really took 40-1 about Morocco to win it, because there's nobody I've seen yet that I think can beat Morocco. Um, they had a bit of an off day against Canada when they were 2-0 up, and they were a bit lucky to get through. But their overall performance has been just so superior to everybody else. It's incredible, and they started the game yesterday at 40-1 and ended the game at 9-1.
yeah,
So I think it's there for the African team, but you see the way they played and their commitment, the whole round. You see from word go what their game plan was, and the way they carried it out, and individually and collectively they were fantastic.
yeah. Again, going back to the England game, I put a lot of posts in play posts. Um, Harry Kane, you look and you think 100% Harry's going to score. He puts it over the bar. Look, it
Yeah,
happens. It's a penalty. Get over it. But you're looking at Mbappe. He he had his most quietest game that I've seen him play. The only time really he turned it on is when he had that 1-to-1 with Walker, and he left him in his wake. I mean, he really has got lashings of pace, but he didn't do anything really on that night, so you'd be happy with that. But I think you're absolutely spot on. And the one post that I put, man of the match, Antoine Griezmann. I think Griezmann is looking like my player of the tournament, and he's my kind of player. He plays in that midfield, and he's not naturally a midfield player. He's usually a forward, and because they've had injuries, he's gone in and done a job in the middle of the park, and he was running the show for large parts of that game. We had players and have players like Jack Grealish and like James Maddison, who have been nothing more than tourists. He puts Jack on with 30 seconds to go. Now that's an embarrassment. That's a disgrace. And if we've had the conversation before, as long as Southgate's a manager, I'd retire from international football if I was Maddison and Grealish, because clearly he doesn't want the creative players. He'll blow smoke up the backside of Jordan Henderson, Jude Bellingham, who I just don't get the loving with Bellingham, and Declan Rice. I don't get it. I just don't see any creativity in that midfield three at all.
Well, I was a bit, I've been watching the kid Bellingham, and
Mm,
I watched him last night in particular, and straight from the kickoff, he was gesturing, he was listening to all the other players to come on, like he was a leader and all that. He's only a young kid.
yeah,
Uh, you can't be doing that. You come into the team, you got to show your worth. Uh, he was arguing with the referee every decision.
yeah,
As if he knows the game more than the referee. Uh, and I don't see that. I don't see. I looked at myself at that age and the way I played the game. And I remember as a young age, uh, I said something to the great referee at that time was a fellow called Jim Finney. I reckon he was the best referee around anywhere in the world
mm,
and most respected. And I was at Stamford Bridge one night and I said something to him. I swore at him, which you could do in them days. And and he just turned around to me. He said, "Yeah, actually, Al," he said, "you're not playing too well yourself."
yeah,
And that kind of put me in my place, as much as say, he's got a point there. Worry about your own game, worry
yeah,
about you come out of it. Don't keep on, this constant going on with a referee all the time, and it proved it last night with Lee Dixon. The commentator, he spoke more about the penalty decision than he did actually what was going on in the game.
yeah.
You know, and I thought if only I could turn it over, but though you turn it over and you got the female section going on about it. You know, and I don't really want to listen to it in French because it's like listening to a cooking show. So, but it was no, it was I thought it was a night. We went out. I think you always do. You always, I haven't been over to my mate's pub for about 10 days. I go over to, and then all the being an inquest this morning, I'm going to put my tape recorder on, I think, today because it'll make a good show of all the excuses they got, and they'll be repeating everything that was said on television, and it was, I think it was like, I think that Harry missing the penalty kind of dampen the whole thing for me because I don't like to see teams getting knocked out like that, whoever they are.
Mm.
It was why does the fella give that penalty away? I just don't understand professional
No.
football anymore. I mean, how ridiculous a tackle was that?
Mm.
You know, I just didn't get it, and it was little things like that in the game at that level. When I was brought up, I used to watch these South Americans and Italians, playing against them, and there would be none of that. It was all they were dangerous people, But nowadays, these defenders do things like that. It's why work hard for 4 years and all of a sudden one of your players does that?
I
It's
think
unbelievable.
absolutely. I think there's been so much inconsistency with the shoulder barge as well. Al, I've seen many a shoulder barge. I'll take you back to when Haaland scored a goal at the Etihad. I can't remember who they were playing, but he's literally barged the defender out the way. And it was very similar to the French defender. And then the panel are going, well, that's a great challenge, that is. He's used his shoulder to gain the advantage, and it was a fair shoulder-to-shoulder barge. You could argue that that was a shoulder in the back. Okay, slightly different. But again, there's been an inconsistency. I've seen shoulder barges that the commentary have gone, well, that's decent, that's fair. And then one like that last night, which has been very similar to others, going, that's a definite free kick. Again, it's the inconsistency and the bias that gets to me. Going back to Bellingham, I put a post on the my Facebook page. Bellingham, concentrate on being a footballer. And I've seen lots of instances of Bellingham over the last few years since he's come onto the scene where he'll moan, he'll berate, he'll do petulant things. And if I've posted this up before, if I was his manager, put the arm around the shoulder, son, you're a 19-year-old kid. Concentrate on being a 19-year-old kid. We've got senior pros to do that job.
Well, yeah, and if you want players to improve if you want young players
Yep.
to improve their game, they're not going to improve their game by doing that. Uh, Once again, it's the manager uh, responsibility to do that. You got to knock that out of players. That's no good. I'm so anti players berating manager referees anyway. You know,
Mm.
it's uh, I've been saying for years now. I'd go in if I was a ref. I would bring a ruling in where when I was playing, just at the end of my career, they started sending the referees into the dressing room to talk to the players before the game about certain things, and which was a good idea.
Yeah.
And then I captain Stoke at the end, and the two captains would go into the referees' room and talk to them about certain things. And so he said, "Tell your players this, tell your players that," you know. So yeah, that was a good thing. But what they should have brought the ruling in that. You know, this is your first warning. I've come in before the game to tell you that I'm going to take no back chat from you.
Yeah.
I'm going to send you off. Take this as your yellow card.
Yep.
I'm not going to start dishing out yellow cards while we're out there. Your warning is now. It's now 5-3. We kick off at 3. You've had your warning. Don't say you haven't been warned and everything else and start, gesturing and all this. You've now been warned. And anyone comes up and question me, you're going to get sent off because I don't question you when you make a bad pass. You know, it's as simple as that, and it's just something our referees in this country, in particular, I know this because I've seen them get out the van when I used to go to football, and they get out. They have a night out that everything's paid for at the hotel the night before. They get out big limousines at
Yeah.
the game. They're like the mafia, they get out as if they're the main attraction of the day.
Yep.
Now they become professionals all of a sudden, which is nice and been going on for a while. But and that's all. That's the mentality they take into the game. Well, if they had that mentality, they should tell the players not to come up and do what they do. Um, I remember Don Howe once said about playing against Leeds was murder because the first thing they would do would, you know, huddle around a referee every time that he gave a decision.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. He said, so we started doing it every time we played them, and it was a joke. It wasn't even worth going to the game. It was ridiculous. And this is again all down to the FA. It's someone within the game has got to put a stop to it.
Now, I'm not a fan of rugby. Excuse me. I don't like the game. Um, some people don't like football. I get that. When there's a World Cup on, everybody is a football fan and they're around the telly or the radio and listening and watching, and they're all experts for 10 minutes. I'm not like that with rugby. I don't like the game, so I don't watch the game. But what I do get from the game is the respect that the players have for the referee. And the referee, his word is final. Don't argue with the referee. Brian Clough also used to say to his players, never argue with the referee. For one reason, when there's a contentious decision, he's going to give it to us. And I think that we should be looking at the referee playing the game. He's the referee, we're the players. He knows the rules, and let's hope that he carries it out to the best of his ability. For sure, he's going to have bad games, and you're absolutely spot on, Al. Lots of those players are also going to have bad games, but it is part of the game.
Yeah, yeah. It's sad that you know, this game would be talked. That England get knocked out of the World Cup. I mean, it is a big, it's a massive World Cup's massive, and to play in it, obviously, I came very close. There's a lot of players. I mean,
Yeah,
some of them players. I remember Ronaldo last night was 170th.
yeah, no,
I
yeah,
mean, I thought, God Almighty, and I played with Jimmy Green off at Stoke. We got no caps, so it was unbelievable. The game is just mind-boggling at times, and it can be. They're talking. They were in tears after the game. The actual panel, but they were nearly crying and saying, "This is heartbreaking." Bloody heartbreaking. We've just been through COVID. We just
yeah,
lost loved ones and everything else, and it's heartbreaking. They're so dramatic. It's after. I love Phil Shankly, but when he said football's more important, more important than life and death, it's come on. This is a game of football. We do love our football, and without football, I would agree that there'll be no life because it's all we got to cling on to it.
mm,
People like you and me, and I go in the pub today, and that would be the main topic, and it'd be the only topic really. Apart from those that go in the pub to find out who was living and who was dying. But no, it's a sad way to go out the World Cup. But I can only say it would be sad if we were the best team.
yeah,
But we haven't been the best team. We've been nowhere near the best team. We've played a poor Wales team, probably the worst Wales team you've seen.
yeah,
Gareth Bale, the picture of Gareth Bale leaving the field with the golf clubs on his shoulder was a great little sketch.
yeah,
Aaron Ramsey, who was a terrific player at Arsenal, never kicked a ball for them. Uh, when you got Joe Allen, who's your best player, who plays at Stoke City, who are nearly bottom of the Championship, in your team, it shows you what a bad team you are, and they are awful. And we were raving about, again the media were raving about beating them 3-0 and could have beaten 10 and all this. I mean, God Almighty, I could have get a team out the Golden Line who could have beat them. Beaten Wales, and then and we beat Iran 6-1 or 6-2. Never really got into a game. Uh, USA, we looked second best. USA knew their what, what was wrong with them. I mean, we all knew how I couldn't believe that they outplayed England. It was unbelievable, and
yeah.
yet there we are last night talking about what a great World Cup we've had. I can't believe it.
I think it's again, we've done this with the Euros. For me, one of the worst Euros in my memory, and I didn't particularly remember the '70 World Cup finals, although I must have been inspired by it because my first footballing hero was Gordon Banks, and I can only put it down to that save against Pele. But I was only like 4 at the time, maybe 5. So you're looking at '70. The first World Cup I really remember was 1974 and Euros as well. So when I look at the Euros and World Cups in my lifetime, personally, I think they're getting worse. I don't think they're getting better. I think England's performances are getting worse. I don't think they're getting any better. But when you listen to the narrative that's been forced through by these women who are commentating, and I've got nothing against women and the women's game. We've said this on podcasts before, but you commentate on your game and let the men concentrate and commentate on their game. But it's the narrative that they drive through that this is the greatest England team that we've ever had. What a great tournament. And I'm sorry, it isn't. You're right. Football isn't life and death. Football is a beautiful game played in the beautiful way and manner, but I just don't see England playing that way. I'd rather lose playing the way we are than win, but ultimately I'd like to see our most creative players on the pitch playing football the way we can do because we've got the players, we've always had the players, but management have always let them down.
Well, I think it all stems obviously from the top. It all
Mm,
stems from the FA. Everything starts at the top.
yeah,
It's a root of all evil. Who they employ, for what reason they employ them. it's incredible. You know, I remember when Graham Taylor got the job, and he wrote a big thing in the newspaper saying that, you know, if only my father was here to see this, this is you know the ultimate thing of getting the England, you know, getting the England job position. And I thought, well, let's give it 6 months and see what you're writing in the paper. Then, you
Yeah,
know, we got to look forward to the way that you want to play football. My God.
yeah,
So they haven't done their own work. You and I went back years and years ago. To our friend that could have been from who we met in Butlins that time when he should have got the job.
yeah,
Uh, some say Brian Clough. Brian Clough would have been probably the best, the most remembered time of any England manager of all time. That would have been fantastic. If he'd have got the job, there would have been all hell. You know, he would have. There'd have been none of this. There would have been, and yet, you know, he was a hell. He was a total crackpot.
yeah,
But as you said, his disciplinary record was second to none. You know, it was unbelievable. He won the league and the European Cup with the best record with the roughest players of all time.
yeah,
You know, with your Kenny Burns in there and Larry Lloyd at the back, you know, and Bowyer and people like that in midfield. I mean, these were they were head cases, you know, and yet and then Stuart Pearce came along.
mm,
Um, yeah, I mean it's all going back. It's the FA. The FA are to blame, and yeah, a man's not going to turn the job down if he's offered him. Good luck to him. Take the job. But I think it's more. If I would look to, if I was given the England job, or when the manager was given the England job, I would be so look. I would think now all you great players can go to bed and rest easy because now you're going to get a chance.
yeah,
You know, let's pick the best player you see. You know, it's like the Argentinians leaving Maradona out, and the Dutch, the total team when Johan Cruyff was in charge. You imagine the Dutch picking a team, and they, like I did, they banned me. They banning Johan Cruyff for 3 years. You know, and France not picking Griezmann. It's in this day and age, and Croatia, 37-year-old Modric, still cruising around the field like a Rolls Royce. You know, it's unbelievable. You know, and yet we got these players in midfield. Declan Rice. Oh, I'm sorry if I offend anyone, but I'm afraid no. You know you only have to look at Declan Rice and say that is not an England midfield player. Do it for your club and go and destroy things for West Ham. Do what you have to do at club level. Go and play for Wimbledon if you want with Vinnie Jones and all them types. But please, not international level. If you're going to play international level, you got to be a class international player. And I'm afraid that's not you. And yet he's number one on the team sheet.
we've always spoken about Declan, that midfield player that for me his brain don't work quick enough, and his brain works quicker than his feet. His feet ain't quick enough to play at that level. You'd identified him as a centre half, and I think that there's a lot of merit in that. That if Declan Rice is going to play for England, it would be at centre half and not in centre midfield. We need players in midfield that can actually play football, that can actually get the ball, take the ball to the opposition and start to make the play. Yeah, okay, we need to win the ball back when we haven't got it, but it's when we get the ball, and that's been the fundamental problem for England. In the 70s, we failed because Revie didn't play for one game. Tony Curry and Alan Hudson, the two best midfield players that we had, he didn't play them. He played Tony for one game away at Switzerland, and he says to Tony, you know, you need to work harder and work harder. And Tony said to me, he went into areas that he shouldn't have gone into, but that's because Revie wanted him to work harder. Don Revie played you twice, once against Cyprus when we won 5-0, and you've always maintained, you know, they were just part-timers. It wasn't really a proper game. But he picked you to fail against the world champions, West Germany. It's an absolute disgrace how England managers have been allowed to stifle, to hinder, to hamper, and to ruin the careers of technically advanced players. And even when in 1970, what was it, 77, when we was trying to qualify for the 78 World Cup finals, the manager then, um, I think it was Greenwood, of course, in them days. He 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 went to Italy and he played defenders in midfield to try and grind out and get a result and try and win the ball. And that's what England have always done when you look through the history of English football. Let's play a defender in midfield to win the ball. And that ain't the way. Other nations have never played that way. They've had creative players in the middle of the park. And if they can't get a creative player in the middle of the park because they've got creative players in the middle of the park, they'll play a creative player and they'll stick him at centre half or they'll stick him in wider positions. So they've got the creativity and flair, something that England have never ever done.
Well, they always point out the one game for England against Hungary at Wembley, and when Puskas tore us
Hmm.
apart, not single-handedly because they were a fantastic nation. Uh, and they said we went back to the drawing board after that game. Well, we didn't make a very good job of going back to the drawing board. The people that went back to the drawing board couldn't draw. It was as simple as that. What's going on? Instead of they took the other route in the game rather than the route that should have been taken. I read the great Len Shackleton's book, and he has exactly the same. He's like he would have been great on with me and you this morning because
Mm.
he would have been saying exactly the same things. And there was a man that was as good as anyone's ever played the game. I never see him play. My father see him play, but he went, that's how you got to play the game. He set an example for all kids to come through and play like that because that's what people. That's why the grounds were so full in the
Yeah.
olden days, just to watch people like him. But nowadays, they say it, even managers say it now, and the pundits say it's a results game, but it might be a results
No, not
game.
for
But
me.
as we always say,
Mm.
it isn't a results game. It's an entertainment. When you're
Yeah.
paying the kind of money out you're paying week in, week out, you want to be entertained. And I don't care whether it's football. If I'm watching cricket, I've gone over to watch the one day now, and I love it because it's entertainment. It's watching people. It's watching two great cricketers play against each other now, try and outdo one another. A great bowler against a great batsman. That's great entertainment. It's not. It was results go out the window. All right, they work it out how many runs they want, but then they go for it.
Mm.
It's you know. It, I wouldn't pay out money to go and watch Des O'Connor, but I would Frank Sinatra,
Yeah.
and that is our standards in this country are poor. There's no doubt about it. When you're watching a lead up to a game and you're watching about Jordan Henderson and his father and all this,
Yeah.
with the greatest respect
Mm.
to Jordan Henderson and his family. Good luck to you, and hard work. He didn't work any harder than my father.
Mm.
They're saying he deserves all the success because he worked so hard at his game. He was hell bent on making it and all that. Well, my father had a harder life than him,
Mm.
but he didn't get picked for England because he worked 24 hours a day. What's going on? We're looking for that George Best. What if he
Yeah.
was alive today? If George Best was watching the game with me last night, he'd have gone, "Oh, I'm glad I never played in the World Cup. It's just what it's all about." We never seen the George Best, and yet we're talking about the greatest players on the planet.
Absolutely. I
They
mean
are
that.
not the greatest players on the planet. They might be a World Cup. But it's not the world's best players by a long chalk.
No.
That's why I love the cricket, because the cricket do bring the best players in the world out.
Absolutely, Alan. And again, when you listen to lots of fans, you've only got to go online on Twitter, Facebook, etc. And the amount that state it's a results business. It's all about the result. No, no, no. It ain't about the result. If you play in the best way that you can, taking the ball forward, trying to create and score goals, entertaining a crowd, 9 times out of 10, if you're a good team, you'll win. So the result will come as long as the performance is there. But if you just set out to not get beat, to bore the pants off your punters, who you're absolutely spot on, are paying a king's ransom to watch these games of football now. There are so many games. I'm not just talking about England. When the Premier League is on, and we've done podcasts before, and you said, I'm really looking forward to Jack Grealish when they start the restart. I think was it Sheffield United versus Aston Villa, and they had that goal that should have been, but the VAR at the goal line technology wasn't working. And you said, but after about a month, we'll be moaning how boring the games are. And you're spot on, because in the Premier League, the focus is on about not getting beat, staying in the Premier League. Let's get this money. England, let's qualify. Let's win games in the World Cup. No, no, no. Let's try and play football, and then the rest will come. And fans will back you, because they'll be going, what a fantastic performance. I love watching England. I don't. I get bored watching England. And again, I'd rather us lose playing the way we do than win, because going back to 66, going back to England's successes, there aren't very many, we harp on about how brilliant we are, and when you look at it, we weren't brilliant, we were average, but we won. We didn't play our flair players. That is the biggest crime in football to me.
Well, yeah, you're right. I mean, I can remember when years ago when I came back from America and I played against some pretty great players over there, some unheard of talents in the NASL. Players I thought that I used to play against and stand there and wonder, where the hell did you come from? Why have we not heard of you?
Yeah,
Because they can't get through the system. They can't get past the coaches, because they can't do the things that the coaches want them to do. But there's some super players over there. And then I come back to England 4 years later, and I thought that I never forget. There was a great Tottenham team with Glenn Hoddle and Ardiles and young Mickey Hazard, and it was around that time I thought the standard in England in 4 years has dropped rapidly. It was the time of Wimbledon. I signed for Chelsea again, uh, and I was on the fringe of the first team. My legs were gone, but I knew I weren't going to get a game. John Neal didn't like any footballers in midfield. He didn't like inside forwards. He would have been the perfect England manager as well.
yeah,
Uh, and I played against Wimbledon one night before they became the team, that beat Liverpool. And then the following year, I've rejoined Stoke, and I was out with my old boss, Mr. Waddington, and then I was telling him about this night playing against Wimbledon. And I went, "Oh my God!" I said, there's some unbelievable team, to play against." And he said, "Well, you've been having a good time in America." He said, "You come back," and he said, what's a friendly anyway?" He says, "Let me tell you something, Al." He says that they're a flash in the pan, and football it is one word to me, is one saying to me, football will always win.
yep,
And it will always win the day. And and at the end of every World Cup, in the main, the best team wins when you go back, and with the best players. And I hope this time round, the best, as I say, the best team I've seen in Morocco, and they got some darn good players. We don't know anything about them. Forget the names on the
yeah,
shirts. They are a real all over the field. This team won. I've never seen a team who they're proud of England. I don't know what their nation are. They're all going to be national heroes,
mm,
and they go about the game in the most professional manner I've ever seen in a football team. I don't think they've been coached. I think he just organised them. To only be with this team for 3 months.
yep,
He's had 4 years with the England team. He hasn't learned nothing from the Euros, Southgate. You thought the night after we we got done by Italy at Wembley against a poor Italy team,
Mm.
you think, well, if you thought he'd have got the sack,
Yep.
but instead of that, he got an extended contract. That's how we are. But I think I really truly believe that we'll be talking about Morocco on our last podcast, the World Cup podcast. I really can't see anyone getting by them, Paul.
Excuse me. We've got the two semi-finals. I think it's, without looking at me, it's called. There used to be wall charts when we were kids because we put them on the wall. But now I'm married and an adult. They're called they're called draw charts, Alan, because they're put in my drawer and then I bring them out. But we're looking at the two semi-finals. We've got Argentina versus Croatia on the Tuesday, and then on the Wednesday we've got Morocco, the first African nation to get to the semi-finals, against France. So next Sunday, this time next week, we're going to be looking forward to the World Cup final. Who do you think we're going to be watching in that final? How do you see the semi-finals panning out, Al?
I think Morocco will be playing Croatia
Right.
unless somebody on a higher level is hell bent that Messi's going out with the World Cup. That's the only way I can see them getting through. Is that it's written in the stars for Lionel Messi, but I can't see that lightning striking twice because although he's made he's been the difference for Argentina. It's nothing like what Maradona done when he won the World Cup on his own, and he did win it on his own in a I don't say they were inferior to this in Argentina team because this is a pretty poor Argentinian
Yeah.
team, a really poor Argentinian team, and for them to get this far is just a couple of, you can't take it away from me. He's still got it. Messi's still superb, but uh, I think the World Cup, yeah, on an overall basis, it hasn't been a great World Cup. I think we've built it up into something it's not. We
Yeah.
have to do that. These pundits to get the job because they got. I mean, what a life they have. They get well paid for going over there and enjoying seeing this and all the razzmatazz. Get away from home for a month. It's not a bad job to have, but overall if we were to sit down, if you'd have put half a dozen of the world's best players down and analyse the World Cup, there's been no Johan Cruyff, there's been no George Best, there's been no Pele's, there's been no Maradonas. I think that's the most outstanding feature of this World Cup that there has been. I don't, they're talking about Mbappe. I've been raving on about Mbappe, about his actual ability to play the game. I didn't really expect him to do too much last night because I think that he had a hard job. I think we spoke last week about him, and you mentioned it. I think he might swap over and go and
Yeah.
play on the right wing. Which would have been a good thing because that would have put the cat amongst the pigeons. As I say, and I think you had a real valid point as well because I know I'd rather face out the two fullbacks. I wouldn't want to play against Walker because he's not the nicest. I wouldn't invite him to one of my parties either.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. He might be a nice fellow, or whatever, but not on the football field, I'm afraid. And as I say, in the first 10 minutes, I thought Dembele was going to be the match winner, and then he stopped giving him the ball. I don't know why that was, but the managerial thing. But I mean, their manager. I think their manager aged 10 years last night. Oh my God, he was having a fit on the line. I mean, I don't know what it is with these people. I mean, they want to try a bit of my life and see how tough it is. But they've got a charmed life. They got the most wonderful life, and you think they got the world on their shoulders. They got if that's a problem, do talking about pick your best players.
Absolutely. Are Croatia the ideal team for Argentina to face. Now, what I'm looking at is the Croatian team aren't well, they don't look the fittest, the most mobile, the most energetic, whereas the Moroccans are. They'd be smashing into them arges. The Argentinians aren't the greatest. I think it's one of the worst Argentinian sides that I've seen ever, if I'm absolutely honest. But I think Croatia and Argentina, I think that's the ideal combination and group of players and teams to play against, whereas the French against the Moroccans, I can see that being fast and furious. And I think that there's two teams that will go head to head, and it'll be a really intense battle end to end. And I think that the Croatian Argentinian game could be a war of attrition, separated by a moment of brilliance by either Modric or by Lionel Messi. But for me, the final, I've got this romantic theory in football, and I can see Lionel Messi and Argentina lining up against Mbappe and France. I can see France winning the final and Messi saying to Kylian Mbappe, I've worn this crown for a number of years. I'm too old now, son. This crown is yours to wear for the next World Cup and World Cups beyond, because the kid's only 23 and he could, by this, well, not this time next Sunday, but this time next Monday, he could have won his first two World Cups back to back, and that's something that hasn't been done since the Brazilians did it in 1962.
Yeah, you really are a romantic, aren't you?
I am, mate.
Yeah, I know.
I'm a
Uh,
dreamer.
I know, I know. I can see why Gareth shatters all your dreams.
Absolutely, yeah.
He ruins everything,
It
doesn't he?
does,
You
yeah,
know.
absolutely. Oh, yeah.
But that's the way. You know, when we're brought up the way we're brought up, and we're taught by. I was taught by my father how to
Hmm.
play the game. I mean, uh, my father was shaking in his grave, every time Southgate speaks, what's going on here,
Yeah.
that's the way we were brought up, and that, as you say, Pele called it the beautiful game when he played against Bobby Moore in Mexico. He said he's the greatest defender in the world, as much as to say, how could he put in a performance like that against our forward line,
Yeah.
coming away with the ball the way he came away with it and starting England attacks. And, it was, but they were performances you remember.
Yep.
There are no that you can't take one performance out of this World Cup with England that you will remember
No.
by any one individual. You can't do it. There's no one say, God, I mean, but I played against West Germany. I'm quite proud of the way I played. I've made my point, and I shouldn't have played in the Cyprus game. I should have walked away with one cap. But it was a game that I would always remember, and I would always be proud of. And
Yep.
people still say, "Oh, that game against West Germany." Well, there wasn't one performance. If I went to a World Cup, played in a World Cup, and my standards fell below what they are, and fell below what I watched the last 3 or 4 games with England, if I played like that for England, then I think I would just have to pack up the game anyway, because that is not enjoyable. That is going back to the Declan Rice thing. This fella is going to be howled as these people that called me last night. One of us a West Ham supporter, and I said about Declan Rice. Said, "Oh, our Declan! Oh, what a job he's doing for England." They're so I don't understand the modern day fan, because they're playing for England. There's players around the country, I'm sure, who are far better equipped in midfield than Declan Rice. I'm sure there are, and I'm not talking about the obvious suspects sitting on the bench.
Absolutely. I mean,
I watched the number 4 for Morocco, and he's out of this world.
mm,
In Amrabat or something. The
yes.
bald-headed
Yeah.
lad, number 4. He set the tone. He set the tone from the word go in the first match, and he hasn't took his foot off the pedal. He's energetic. He's here, there, and everywhere. He was breaking up play, was starting play, and he kept them going right to the very last kick of the game. He's emerged from this World Cup, but I don't see, if I had a big club in England, if I'd never seen him play before, you got to buy him.
Mm.
You know, this is they say that well, it is the World Cup is like that is your chance to show the world that you can play, and this fella's done it. And the kid that got the goal, my God, I don't know where he come from, where he got, it looked like he jumped from out of the ground into the
Yeah.
in the, he was unbelievable. Um, they're just so athletic and carefree, and as I say, the coach has been there 3 months, and Gareth has been there over 4 years. So it just goes to show, when they keep saying about, oh well, he's only been there a short while. Wait till he gets his real point across, and the players will key into him. Don't worry about that. Well, that doesn't happen. That's not what it's all about. It took me a week to play for manager at Stoke. It took me 1 week to change my whole life,
Mm.
because the manager can do that,
Yeah.
and the terrible thing about Southgate, he's brainwashed these players so much that they're even believing in the way he's doing it. I
Absolutely.
don't get it. I really don't get it. As you said at the beginning of the show about packing up, and I think Jack's got to think about his future in the Premier League now, because he ain't gonna be an international player, not while this fella's around.
No.
And if you want to just sit on the bench, if you want to, I'll get him a ticket for Wembley every time he wants to go and watch an England game. My mate can get me the
Yeah.
tickets out, but no, it's not the. I wouldn't want to go and sit on the bench for England week in, week out and watch inferior players. I'm afraid not, no.
Absolutely spot on. But again, going back to your football education, I was taken to St Andrews by my dad. Whenever we played Chelsea, it would be, son, have a look at Charlie Cook, Peter Osgood, Alan Hudson. If you're going to watch QPR, be look at Stan Bowles and, these other players that they've got. Look at, I know you don't like Rodney Marsh, but when at Man City, Rodney Marsh, Mark Summerby, Colin Bell, Francis, all the players of the 70s, son, have a look at Frank Worthington. So I, these players were identified to me by my dad. Watch these flair players. I was always amazed that England didn't play those flair players. And my lasting memory of England in the World Cup would be Jack Grealish doing his funny dance when he scored for that young fella, and Jack Grealish and Phil Foden kicking the ball to each other from one end of the swimming pool to the other. And that will be my lasting memory of the World Cup. That is absolutely pathetic. And I would say to Jack, and I've said before on these podcasts, and we both have said this, and with Terry on the current view as well, either retire from international football, or when you get on that pitch, completely ignore anything that their coach or manager is telling you. Play for yourself and get back to the form that you had at Aston Villa by sticking your two fingers up. You mentioned, and I think it was a great point about Maddison. I'm playing around the bottom of the league for Leicester City, and it's the most enjoyable football I've ever played. And therein lies what a player should be looking at, and looking at his career, performances. Forget the medals, they'll come later, hopefully. But your performances, and I remember players for their performances, not for what they've actually won.
Well, yeah, that's what it'll be about. Today I'll go in my mate's pub and we'll haven't been in there for 10 days, which will be nice. And what they'll ask about your views, and I'll just I'll say what performances. There's no in '66. My old friend Alan Ball, you could talk about him all day in the pub and say, how
Yeah,
about his performance throughout, and then on in '70, going on performances in '70 were great, from the likes of Ball, from the likes of Moore. the saver banks. I know this fella's a good goalkeeper, but it doesn't seem that England really. I mean, he made a save from Giroud. Giroud should have scored, but he only kind of scuffed it. It wasn't a game. Going from there into go. Oh, because you'll always come back to last night's game and trying to analyse it and more like brutalise it.
Yeah,
It was a hard watch. And I think in years to come, them players will, 20 odd years to come, them players will, they'll watch the playbacks of these matches, and maybe it might sink in that this in the history of the game, in our game, they must go out and talk. They must have seen great players before them and want to emulate them. But these players, they just to keep passing it square and backwards and everything else. We can get people off the street to do that. Get them fit, and I remember only 3 or 4 years ago when Usain Bolt went to Old Trafford and put him for a trial.
yeah.
It just about comes to show what the standard was. If he thought he could play for them, but that's the way it gets you. Whereas if he'd have watched them with George Best and Bobby Charlton and Dennis, he wouldn't have even dreamt about it. He'd think, can I even get into the training ground? But that's the way the game's changed. The standard of play has been poor.
Absolutely. We always go on about fine margins. England are hampering and keep hanging on the fine margin that if Harry Kane would have scored the goal, we could have still been in the World Cup. But I always look, and we always look out at the if only moments. And Gareth Southgate must be thinking now, if only I was brave enough to play our most creative players, we could have gone further and we could have won the World Cup. And I think that is the acid test with any manager. Be
No,
brave, be bold, play your best players, and let's have a pop at it. But
I
again,
can assure you he won't be thinking that, Paul.
no,
It's as I say, if he didn't learn from the
yeah,
Italian disaster at Wembley, then he ain't gonna learn from nothing. That was the one match he should have learned from, to just change, or the FA should have just sacked him and brought someone else in. We said we can't sit through that again. The Italians were hopeless. They were legless. We were 1-0 up in 5 minutes. We shouldn't forget things like this. It's because this is why we got knocked out last night,
yeah,
because we stuck with the old guard who's seen him through. He's stuck with the players, even to the extent of when he brought Sterling on, who's just had a trip back to England and back, and brought him on because he sees him as some lucky charm
yeah,
at England
incredible.
level. I can't believe they brought this fella on with 10 minutes to go.
No, I can't.
And he's been, they plead him to come back. He didn't want to come back. He was emotionally, I wouldn't say, I don't know if money's not an element now, but people have broke into his house and it's a personal thing. I wouldn't be bothered about going back. I'd
Yeah,
want to get my life in order, you know. And then
absolutely.
and there he is. He's had the most horrendous time. Not like Bobby Moore in Mexico, where they blamed him. They said he nicked a bracelet, but that Bobby just took that as the compliment.
Yeah,
And he said, "Well, I'll show you who took the bracelet." And he'll come back to England. I was reading it in Alan Ball's book the other day. He said, "I've never seen Bobby hadn't slept for 4 days.
yeah,
He was unshaven, and he come back. He said, within an hour, it was the old Bobby Moore. There he was leading us in against Brazil. It was unbelievable. And these are the different mentalities of the game. And when I see Sterling come on last night, the French manager must have been shaking, clapping his hands and thinking, "Oh, what a result we've had here!" Because
absolutely.
if he's going to be their saviour, then we're okay.
Absolutely. And
Ridiculous move. Nobody mentions it on TV. Why bring him on? For God's sake, with the greatest disrespect to Sterling, whatever he's done in the game, whatever he's going to do in the game, yeah, but not. This wasn't the right moment to bring him on, I'm afraid.
And again, how bad would James Maddison, and in particular, England need a goal? You're looking at Callum Wilson. Surely he should have come on and had a chance in any of the games. But again, another tourist, because Gareth Southgate has got his favourites and he's got his pets. So the best thing that could happen to English football and for us is that if I look at Sky when I've just got to go out to work now, do a couple of jobs, I come back, I see the yellow banner. Gareth Southgate has resigned as England football team manager. Thank the Lord for that. There probably is one. But I wouldn't hold my breath, Al, because he will hold on for grim death.
Well, the problem is, while the FA's there, mate, it's not about him going. It's about who would take over.
Correct.
It's we got a problem there. A big problem. We probably had our best manager in Venables for a long time.
Yep.
I know it was '96. It was a few years ago now, but he would have kind of, and those before Venables. Obviously, there was the best managers were before the tracksuit managers, but. Yeah. Venables would have kind of paved the way for future England managers to come and to follow my way of playing by picking your best players, by picking Teddy Sheringham. You couldn't see that Teddy Sheringham was the best in that role, and he was fantastic at doing it. You pick your best midfield players, your best striker. He told Alan Shearer before the competition they were playing every game. Shearer was saying the other night, he said, he don't know what a lift he gave me. That's great management. Anyone can do it to Harry Kane. We know that Harry Kane's, he's a captain, so we know he's going to play every game. It's once again the World Cup's over, and where are we going? Where do we go from here?
Yep.
It's one of them again. It's where do we go from here? Not that was wonderful. We're going in. My mate's going to say, what's going to happen? I've got two games left where no one's going to come in the pub, and England are out of the World Cup. I said, well, don't blame me. You want to blame Southgate for that? I mean, Christ Almighty. I mean, they weren't setting the world alight when they were in there. All these people that go over. You see them last night in Marrakesh. My goodness gracious! That was about setting the world alight. But we are far from set the world alight.
Absolutely. Well, we know where we're going from here. Gareth Southgate will still be the England manager. They'll probably give him another extended compliment. You're going to your mate's pub to have a few jollies, and I'm going to Bearwood.
Well, there you go. These are all our jobs at path in life. We all go down different paths. But those people, the people that are involved with the FA, they got some path to go down. They just don't. They haven't got a clue. They haven't got a clue about football. They haven't got a clue about people who manages football teams. They God knows what their next meeting's going to be about. Where do we go from here?
Absolutely. Yeah. On that note, Al, we will reconvene next week. Probably Monday night, because we would have known who's won the World Cup. I'm going France. Who are you going for? And then we will start the next podcast, our final part 7, with, well, we were both wrong. We didn't see that coming, did we?
Well, I think if that was a case, it wouldn't be a bad argument or discussion, because we do know. There's one thing we do know now, is that the teams that have got through deserve to be there.
Yep.
And they've all got great qualities of some kind. The big man in the sky is going to say, is it going to be Modric? Is it going to be Messi? They might be a poor outfit, Argentina, but they've got Messi. He's a magician. We haven't got a magician. I think I'm saying that I can't see past Morocco. I
Yep.
really can't. And the more I've watched them, the more I'm thinking, and I'm a gambler, and I was so upset yesterday that I never backed them. I wouldn't back them because I didn't back them the game before. I mean, they knocked Spain out,
Mm.
and then they beat them yesterday, and they haven't done it by panicking, and they've done it by sheer outplaying the other team. They've soaked them in. They've had a look at them. I mean, he was sitting on the TV watching them yesterday, and he was saying about, I don't know, Dixon or one of them was saying, I'm amazed about Morocco. I didn't think they were going to come out there after the way they started. Well, what they were doing, they were just settled down for quarter of an hour, and they had a good look at the other team, and they went, "Oh, we can go for these now,"
Mm.
you know. And every time they broke out, they couldn't handle it. Uh, because I don't know. It was. I think this is. They really is going to be the surprise packet, and they just play the game so they're a breath of fresh air. They play it the way it should be played, and they play it as if they haven't got a manager.
Absolutely.
You know.
Right, till next time, Al, till next Monday, that is. You're going Morocco, I'm going France. One of us might be wrong, right? Or we could both be wrong. So
Absolutely.
have a good Sunday, have a few drinks, and we'll speak soon.
All right, Paul. Thanks very much. Well done,
Cheers,
mate.
Al. Thank you, and thanks for listening, guys. Ta-ra a bit.
Good luck, mate.
Cheers, pal. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.